Well, hey everybody, it's Dave Marsh here from Crossroads Church, and I have with me the Honorable Brian Boal from Boal and Associates. And we wanted to get together today and talk a little bit, mainly for the small business owners in our community. This is certainly a crazy time that we're all living in, and there's been a lot of talk for help and assistance for employees, which is certainly needed and justified, and unemployment and those benefits that are out there. We certainly encourage people to apply for those, and hopefully you can get through all that red tape and get some assistance. But we also have a heart for the small business community in our area. Brian, this is what you do day in and day out as a CPA, and so much more than crunching numbers. You really do help advise people in their business and how to move forward. And here we are in this crisis time. Can be very, very stressful for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Some folks don't know about the programs and the assistance that's out there. So we thought we'd talk about that a little bit today and maybe give a little advice along the way.
Sure, absolutely. No, you're exactly right. The landscape has changed, and we at an accounting firm thought we'd be doing taxes the last few months. It's been none of that. It's been a lot of small business consulting, small business advising, really helping people in their time of need, and that's what we like doing.
Yeah. Well, you guys do a great job of that. We appreciate you in our community. We really do, and then a lot of people do as well. But again, just kind of putting ourselves in the shoes of that small business owner who is trying to respond to this time of crisis and figure out, where do I go from here and what do I do? And sometimes there's some folks that are maybe in a true crisis, like, hey, I don't even know how I'm going to pay my bills this month. I don't know how am I going to pay my mortgage or my business loan. What advice would you give to someone who's in that spot?
No, it's a great question, and we've been doing a lot of this. First thing I would tell you is step back for a moment. Take your time and think about what bills do I have out there? What can I pay right now? What can't I pay right now? And you really need to reach out to your vendors, reach out to your banks. Everybody's willing to work with you right now, especially with the small business world. The banks, if you reach out to your bank and you say, I'm having trouble, I can't be open, or I'm open on a limited basis, I can't make my mortgage payment this month, I know I'm not going to be able to do it. Reach out to them ahead of time. Don't let that just hide under the rug. Reach out to them, let them know you're not going to be able to make the payment. Majority of these banks right now, majority of these vendors will work with you. We've been finding that a lot of the banks, and not every bank, but a lot of the local banks, if you reach out and you state, I just can't make the mortgage payment right now, they'll give you a 3-month deferral in some cases, where they'll basically say, for the next 3 months, don't make a payment. We're going to tack those 3 months onto the end of your loan. So you are extending the time period on your loan. But it's giving you a 3-month break to try to catch up, let your cash flow, let your bank account rest for a little while. So what I would say is, again, don't hide the fact that you can't make the payment. Reach out to the vendor, reach out to the bank. They'll work with you.
Yeah. This is not the time to pretend that everything's okay, or to just let those bills pile up on your desk and just, and sometimes that's our temptation. When you get overwhelmed, it's just like, I just can't handle one more thing, or one more email, one more phone call, one more bill. I'll leave them in the mailbox. Let's let the postal carrier worry about them. But this is not the time to do that.
That's right.
And so you want to tackle it head on, be very proactive, as you said, kind of reach out. The other thing, let's talk about, we mentioned unemployment. A lot of folks are unemployed. We went from record low unemployment to record high unemployment in, 8 weeks or something like that. So, the way you define a crisis is a lot of information at one time. And this is what has happened. So let's talk about where unemployment is right now for the employee and that employer.
Okay, sure. I want to step back to the vendor payments, the bank payments on one item that I missed there as well. The other thing, don't forget, credit reports are still important. So again, don't let something go by the wayside, because it could negatively impact your credit in the long run, and that takes a long time to repair. So again, if you reach out and you negotiate a payment abatement for a few months with a vendor, that's going to help you from a credit report standpoint too. Keep that in mind in that process. On to unemployment, you're exactly right, Dave. Unemployment has become, the system has been overloaded. Yeah. The states are just overwhelmed right now with the number of requests. We're seeing it on the news how the numbers are just growing by the millions. Unemployment is open right now for employees in an employee situation, and then in an unprecedented manner, it's also open to independent contractors, sole proprietors. We've never seen that landscape before. Those are folks that receive a 1099 rather than a W-2. They're eligible for unemployment right now. That's never occurred before that I'm aware of. It is a difficult system to get through. Be prepared. If you're going to sign up for unemployment, it's going to take some time and some patience. Yeah. You're going to find yourself jumping on the website at 2 o'clock in the morning to try to get through. It is difficult, and even once you get through and you get signed up for the programs, you're still going to run into some roadblocks along the way. The benefits aren't going to start the next day. You're going to get lots of letters in the mail that you're going to have to respond to. It's a tedious process, but it is available now to help those that aren't able to work, that are laid off. Unemployment is there to help. What I would just say is be patient going through the system. The websites have been updated. Maryland just recently overhauled their website in the last few days. It's gotten a lot better, but they've had to adapt to the change too. Be patient with the folks on the other end of the phone because they're trying to do their job too in a crazy world right now. Unemployment, will provide, in Maryland, for instance, it will provide up to $430 a week of maximum benefit through the state plan. Okay. The federal government came in and they've adapted a $600 per week bonus on top of the state plan. So some folks can receive up to $1,000 a week in an unemployment situation. That $600 bonus supposedly is going to run through about July 31st. Okay. So we'll see how long that holds up. But as of right now, signing up for unemployment, it is available. It's just a tedious process. So be patient.
Yeah. Some other things to think about when we talk about, kind of losing your job or being furloughed. There are people hiring.
Correct.
So one of the things that has been said more times than any of us probably wants to hear ever again is we're all in this together. And, well, kind of.
Right.
We're all in the same storm, not in the same boat, is what I've heard somebody say, and that's probably pretty accurate. But what I mean by that is there are people hiring.
Right.
And certainly for your financial health, for your emotional health, your mental stability, if you can work.
Right. Absolutely.
And so even if your previous job is not available to you right now, there might be some other things.
That's right.
Some people are going to prosper during this time. And that's a thing to look at. As I study the scriptures, I can see there are times, there's times of famine.
Right.
And then in that same famine, some people prosper in the time of famine.
Absolutely.
So if there are opportunities made available to you, this might be a great time for a career change.
That's right.
It might be a great time to do something different. So, don't just look at a benefit like this and say, well, this is my long-term plan. It's not a long-term plan.
Right.
As you said, these things are going to expire.
They are.
And you want to make sure that you're ready. This is something to help you get by, but you're ready to go into that next season of life. So I would definitely be thinking about that as far as, hey, is there something else I could do? Or maybe this is a great time for me to just make a shift in my career.
Right.
I know another program that has gotten a lot of talk, but also has been very confusing for many of us who lead organizations, is what they call the PPP program. There was a round of it. It kind of went through all the money, and Congress refunded it again. Right. And kind of catch us up to speed on what that program is, and is it still available, and that sort of thing.
Sure. And I want to step back on unemployment one more time, too. Keep in mind, if you sign up for unemployment is taxable as well, and a lot of people miss that. The fact that unemployment, if you receive it, it will be something you have to report as income on your tax return the following year. So make sure you're setting some of it aside, or they will withhold on it as well. Make sure you're taking care of yourself from that standpoint too. You don't want to get to the end of next year and have received unemployment that you didn't pay tax on and now end up with a large tax bill from it. So be careful with that as well. PPP has been an interesting landscape here for the last few weeks. What it's called is the Paycheck Protection Program, and Congress put the PPP in the landscape through the CARES Act. And basically what it is a business has the opportunity to sign up for the Paycheck Protection Program in order to bring their employees back onto their payroll. And it can be an operating business, or it can be a business that's currently in the shutdown situation. They sign up for the PPP. They're funded the PPP. The purpose of the PPP is to utilize it for payroll, to bring your employees back onto your payroll. It's to alleviate these unemployment rolls. Like we talked about, record numbers of unemployment right now. The PPP's intention is to bring folks back to work, get them ready so that when if it's a non-operating business right now, get them ready so that when the green light goes on, we can go back into business on day one. We're not spending our time over the next few weeks trying to recruit new employees. The PPP did go through 2 rounds. The initial round went extremely quickly. The money was gone in no time. There's been a lot of press over the PPP about folks that signed up for it and maybe shouldn't have gotten it. That being said, they were following the rules that existed at the time. But the question becomes, when you sign up for the PPP, if you're a business owner, you do have to certify that economic uncertainty surrounds your business. There's not been a real clear definition of what that is, but opinion only. These days, who doesn't have economic uncertainty right now? It's everywhere. So, signing up for the PPP is a decision that has to be made. And if your business has been impacted in a negative manner, and you can prove that, and you can sleep at night knowing that, you have proof of the fact that your business was impacted, then the PPP might be an option for you. There are some percentages that can be utilized in the PPP to pay rent, to pay utilities, and a few other expenses, but primarily it's related to payroll. And the goal of it is to bring your employees back onto your payroll. A couple caveats I'll mention with PPP is that it's a government loan, and when you sign up for PPP, you're signing a loan document with the bank. At the end of the loan term, you will be forgiven, or you can be forgiven on certain expenses. There are a lot of questions out there as to how that forgiveness calculation is going to work, what's going to be forgiven, what's not. As of today, as we sit today, we don't have solid guidance yet on exactly what's going to be forgiven and what the process is going to be. There are lots of interpretations of it, but there is not solid guidance yet. So you want to be really careful with this program. Make sure that if you take the PPP, you're very close to your accountant, you're very close to your attorney potentially, to understand exactly what you're signing up for and what you're getting into. I fear that at the end of this, there are going to be lots of folks that are going to have a surprise, because the PPP can end up being a loan on your books if you don't treat it properly. So you want to stay very close to your accountant, to your attorney in the process if you obtain PPP. Another caveat on PPP that folks need to be very careful with, if you're not an operating business right now, I'll use a restaurant as an example. If you sign up for the PPP and you get the PPP funding, but you're not able to work right now by state law or state mandate, if you offer your employees to come back to work and they potentially decline coming back to work because they're receiving unemployment, they're happier with the unemployment benefit they're getting, you may have created a problem for your employee, because if they're offered work and they decline that option, they technically have possibly put a wrench in their own unemployment benefits. So you want to be very careful with who you're offering a job back and when, the timing of when you do that, because you could create a problem for your employee in that situation. Just something that needs to be discussed ahead of time. The PPP has a lot of intricacies to it. You want to be very careful with the program.
One of the things we talked about before we started recording is how important communication is right now between that small business owner and the employees.
Yes.
You were saying you're having lots of late night Zoom meetings.
More Zoom meetings than we've ever had. Yeah.
I think that's so important for both parties.
It is.
A lot of times as the business owner, we might have a lot of information that our average employee doesn't.
Right.
But if we can share as much of that with them as it
Right.
can, it removes fear. It removes, mistrust and,
It does.
and speculation. It helps them plan for their future. So certainly we just encourage you, even if you're not working in the same, building or office right now, make yourself accessible, do those Zoom meetings, do those phone calls, and just try to communicate to your employees as much as possible. As much as possible. Right now, it's hard to plan what you're going to have for lunch.
Absolutely.
You don't know what restaurant's going to be open.
Absolutely.
But be honest with them about that. One of the things, of leadership is making the best decision you can, oftentimes not having all the information.
Right.
And so you just be honest with your employees and say, hey, as far as I can see, as far as I can tell, we think we're going to reopen on this date.
Right.
At this capacity.
Right.
And, does that impact that employee, or maybe it's just another employee right now? Just try to be as forthcoming and honest as you can with your employees. And then I would say to employees, also give your employer a lot of grace.
Absolutely.
Because all of this is just changing so quickly. And they're trying to do their best, not only for them and their family and their business, but for you and your family as well. So communication and lots of grace among companies.
Absolutely. Leadership is tough, and leadership in employee-employer situations in a small business, I don't think it's ever been more difficult than it is right now, because none of us know what we're going to wake up to tomorrow. So I think that you said it perfectly. Bear with the leader of the business. They're making decisions right now in a crazy world as well, and they're doing the best they can. But I agree with you. Communication, I think, is the key right now between employees and employers, because we're not seeing each other face to face like we're used to every day.
Yeah,
we're all in a different environment, and I think if we communicate with each other, we can make things a lot better. In regards to the PPP, I do want to follow up too. You don't have to have payroll in order to qualify for the PPP. So if you're a sole proprietor, if you're a realtor, let's say, or you're an auto mechanic and you don't have any employees, you can still sign up for the PPP. If your business, again, if you can meet the certification that economic uncertainty surrounds your business, you can show that sales have been off, or all of a sudden you lost these contracts you thought you may have coming up, a sole proprietorship without payroll can qualify for the PPP as well. That doesn't mean that you have to have employees on your books. But again, there are lots of rules, lots of intricacies. We want to be very careful, and you want to stay very close to your accountant or your attorney if you pursue the PPP.
Yeah. So, kind of coming face to face with the reality of, like, the whole world has changed here in this short period of time. One of the things we wanted to talk about is how to plan to reshape a business or a company for, quote, this new world, and however long this is going to last.
Right.
We really don't know. But this is the time to not only think out of the box, but probably just get rid of the box.
Yeah.
Because the box is not going to work for at least the near future.
Right.
So is there anything you're encouraging people to do during this time as they kind of try to plan for the future?
Absolutely. And one that I have found very helpful is, again, the leader of the business, the owner of the business, has a lot on their shoulders right now. They need help. They really do. And in most of these small businesses, I don't think you could talk to too many business owners that say they need help right now. They need ideas. And I think it's a great idea, even with the PPP. If you can bring your folks back on payroll, and maybe you're not open yet, maybe you're not open to full capacity, maybe you're open, but you're not full capacity like you were before we went into this, use your employees as a think tank. Let them throw out ideas. You can bring your folks back onto payroll through the PPP just for the purpose of brainstorming at this point. I think it's very worthwhile. I've seen that be successful in several businesses so far, where employees have good ideas. We all need good ideas right now. We are going to be doing things differently going forward when we come out of this. So employee input, I think, is very valuable right now to a business owner, to help shape what we're going to be doing here in the near future.
Yeah. I know that's something that we did when this all first, started. It's like, oh, what in the world is going to happen here? But But we found great strength from just our team here meeting, and in the beginning that was Zoom meetings, and then later it turned into in-person meetings. But getting that synergy going and those ideas going is so important. And one of the leaders I listened to, he says this. He says, limitation breeds innovation.
Right.
Limitation breeds innovation. And so we're in a time right now that if we're going to survive and if we're going to thrive eventually, you're going to have to innovate.
Right.
You cannot do, the same business model that you've been doing for decade after decade after decade.
Right.
And, I was thinking earlier about some of the things I'm seeing some of our local, healthcare providers do, like curbside medicine.
Right.
If you'd have told me 3 months ago I was going to pull into a parking lot and a doctor was going to come out and see me, and we're going to have the appointment at my window like I would get a burger.
Right.
I would have said, you're crazy. That's never going to happen. Guess what? It's happening, you know, or the idea that some facilities are kind of eliminating waiting rooms.
Right.
And just like Texas Roadhouse would give me a beeper and say, here, we're going to beep you when it's time to, come in and have your appointment. Some offices are doing that, you know. That's a great change.
Absolutely.
Like I would much rather wait in my car than I would in that waiting room with sick people.
Absolutely.
And so, but it was only the limitation caused by Corona that forced them into innovation.
Right.
And so this is definitely a time, I think, for any leader to really be thinking about what are some things that we could change. There are probably some things about the way we operate our business that we haven't liked for a long time.
Absolutely.
And to think now is, hey, we could probably actually make this change.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
so anyway, this is a time to be thinking out of that box.
I agree. And even collaboration with other fellow business owners, similar to, you may consider them a competitor, but, the way I look at Garrett County, are we really competitors? I think we're all in this together. And I know with us at the accounting firms and the CPAs, we've all been communicating back and forth with each other. As right before I got here, we were communicating, what date do you think you're going to actually open your office again, and how are you going to do it? Reach out. Small groups in this situation, I think, would be very important to collaborate with other business owners to say, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it when we come out of this? I mean, we're all in this together, and I think if we all share our ideas, we're all going to come out of this better and more positive.
Yeah. Hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to kind of cut this off today, and we're going to come back with part 2, because I went on to overload people with too much information. But some things we want to talk about. We want to talk about some tax deadline changes. Some of that has happened. There's some changes in some tax law that could be very beneficial. Talk about some grant programs.
Right.
And then I want to address kind of the leader taking care of their own health during this time.
Yeah.
I really believe that the very best investment we can make long-term for the future of our business or our organization is in our own spiritual, physical, and emotional and mental health.
Absolutely.
And so this is not the time to fall apart.
No,
even though that's our temptation. And so we're going to come back in kind of part 2 of this podcast and talk about those things. Thanks so much for being with us today.